Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel, Jamie J. Wise, really unique name. This is basically how I became a model and how I traveled the world and got to experience a lot of crazy things. I might get a little sweaty during this video because I have to turn my AC off, and right now in California it is so hot that if I leave it off for 5 minutes I start profusely sweating, so please bear with me on that regard. It'll make my skin look glistening, and that's fantastic for modeling. So yeah, basically at the end of the last story, I'd signed to a Paris agent and I'd signed to a New York agent, and yeah, my journey was pretty much just beginning. So basically, as soon as I signed with the Paris agent, we were going. I was going to go to Paris and I was going to meet the agency. So 3 days later, I was on the Eurostar and I was going to Paris. When I arrived in Paris, you know, it's an amazing city. I'd already been several times before, but the energy in that place, it just feels so old. It's so beautiful. It really does feel romantic. People are sitting out on the streets, drinking wine, smoking cigarettes. I smoked at the time as well, so I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna go to a cafe and drink some wine and smoke some cigarettes, and it felt amazing, you know, I'm not gonna lie, it felt amazing. But the same deal with Milan. As soon as I get off the Eurostar, me with everything I have, my backpack, which was always fully loaded, my suitcase, I have to try and find this agency. And in Paris, all the streets are winding and complicated. All the fronts of companies and doors and offices are these like huge wooden doors without much description outside. And you know, back then, I don't think I even had an iPhone, so I couldn't use GPS. Data was really expensive in Europe at the time, and there weren't many packages for me to be able to buy, to be able to use my internet while I was there. And Google Maps, honestly, it just wasn't something which you really did internationally yet. It was still really early days. God, that makes me feel so old. But yeah, and so, you know, I have a map again, and basically just like printouts on Google, like sheets of paper which gave me like specific directions. And all the time when I was in these foreign countries, you know, if anyone had seen me, I was basically just wandering around not really knowing where the hell I was. But I was in Paris, so it was okay. It was beautiful. If I took a wrong turn, I'd see something more amazing in Paris, you know, so it wasn't too much of a drama for me at the time. But I made it to Major Models Men, and I walked in, and the only person that I had met so far from this agency was Roger. And Roger was like a really, really cool guy. And so I remember getting into the agency and meeting the head booker, and the head booker was, you know, he was everything that you'd imagine about someone from Paris. You know, he came across, you know, kind of arrogant. Everything that I said to him, he just kind of was like, He smoked indoors. Everyone smoked indoors back then. I don't know if they still do now, but he was smoking indoors. So he was sitting at his desk, like with a cigarette, and he was like, you know, like very sarcastic, and made me feel uncomfortable. I don't know, like I'm just the kind of person that, you know, I meet authenticity with authenticity, and when someone's like holding something back and have things in their brain that aren't out in the forefront, or I can't suss out, it makes me feel very uncomfortable, honestly. And but I knew Roger was super excited about me. I think I was a little bit traumatized, honestly, from it sounds so pathetic, but I think I was a little traumatized from my experience with my first test shoot and doing all those shoots and everyone saying no. And also walking into all of those agencies and everyone saying no. I just constantly didn't feel like I belonged, you know. It was, even though I'd started to do really good stuff and I had this Paris agency, I felt at any moment the rug could be pulled from underneath me, and I was fully supporting myself. I'd been fully supporting myself for a long time at this point. I had debts, you know. In one of the previous videos, I said, I don't know how I afforded to do all this stuff. Well, I got credit cards. And I had overdraft with my bank in England, which was like I had £1,000 overdraft, and I think I had like a £400 credit card. And so this was like the beginning of me starting to invest in my career by getting, you know, overdrafts and credit cards and stuff, with the idea that it would pay off in the future. So I meet the head booker, you know, we have a little chat, but he doesn't really seem that interested. A lot of times head bookers, they have the biggest people at the agency in their, you know, in their list of people that they're promoting. And so with new faces, they're not really going to concern themselves very much with the new faces at the beginning. They're just not going to do that. But Roger was there, instantly made me feel at home. Absolutely amazing guy. He started to tell me what we were going to do. He'd already had shoots booked for me. These weren't test shoots, these were like real photo shoots. Within my first week in Paris, I booked a lookbook for Carven, which is like this beautiful high fashion company. And so I'd already made money. In Paris, they had put me up in a friend's house, like it was one of the friends of the agency's house. And so no one was there. I was there on my own, but I was in this kind of beautiful house for the whole week. I was completely on my own this whole trip because I didn't meet any other models. It was off season, so there weren't any other real models in town or anything that I knew or bumped into or anything like that. I was completely on my own. So yeah, and so I had this lookbook booked basically for Carven. And what a lookbook is it's an internal kind of book which shows the clothing and the offerings of the next season coming up. So it doesn't really get published, it doesn't really get publicized, it's not an advertising campaign or anything, it's really quite internal. But in high fashion they still do this to a really high-end degree, you know, because it has to be. The fit has to be perfect, the shoot has to be perfect, it has to look really elegant because this is Paris. Paris fashion is always very elegant and simple and beautiful, because it's just the Parisian way, and I loved that. I mean, my Paris photo shoots and my Paris experiences in modeling was some of my best because I always gravitated towards elegance and classicalness, you know. I loved that. I loved that image of a man, and I liked to present that image of a man. So I went to this shoot for Carven, and it's in their offices. So it's in the Carven offices, and we're in like one of the office rooms, and they've sort of set up like a set for it. I remember it being so hot. This was like summertime in Paris, and it's so hot. And this is another thing about modeling is you're always shooting winter clothing in summer and summer clothing in winter. Always, because it's always for the next season. So it's rolling on, you know? So I was shooting in like cashmere clothing with these like really like stiff shirts and like ties, and it was a very like schoolboy look, you know. I had these like long socks on and these like stiff leather shoes, and I remember it was uncomfortable to shoot in, but you know, as I say, I really liked elegance, so I really enjoyed shooting it, and so I did that shoot, and I met this amazing man called Alessandro, who was the head of creative back then for Carven, and he was such a quiet, sweet guy. And he ended up adding me on Facebook, and even to this day, when I post things on Instagram and Facebook, etc., he likes them straight away. Like, he liked me as a model as soon as he saw me, and that never ended. And I do believe, obviously, it's because of the way I held myself in those situations too, because I was always very friendly and affable, and you know, wanted to make the shoot work as best as I possibly could. So I'd done this shoot for Carven. I don't think I got paid too much for it. I think it was something like 800 euros. And the interesting thing in Paris and in Milan is the agency take almost 45% of anything you earn. So even if I earned 500k, I'd get probably like 270k. You know, I never earned 500k, but so yeah, 800 euros, 400, you know. But the best thing is that my booker, Roger, who was an amazing man, put me up in a friend's apartment, so I wasn't paying for apartment fees or hotel fees. And also, obviously, my Eurostar ticket had come out of my account. So really, this trip I wasn't making any money, and I was in Paris for maybe 3 weeks. And another interesting fact is I can't eat gluten. I haven't been able to eat gluten for maybe like 17 years. And I know it's hilarious. Oh, a model who can't eat gluten. No, it must be like you're just trying to keep yourself thin, etc. No, every time I ate gluten, I was in for 2 weeks of extreme discomfort. But if you're in Paris, then you know, you're pretty screwed because everything has gluten in it. Everything is super expensive, all the food is super expensive, and it has gluten in it. So during these 3 weeks, I found myself eating salads. Salads from Subway is what I would get because it was cheap. I could get protein and I could get all my healthy vegetables, because I was still very concerned about my appearance, you know, and acne and all of that kind of stuff. And, you know, during these first years of modeling, I didn't even realize how much I was really catering for my image by what I ate all the time. So I was very thin for the majority of the time that I was modeling. Even though I worked out and stuff and I was very lean and I looked big, I was very thin. And so, yeah, and also another thing that I did was, in Paris, they have a lot of Japanese restaurants, like a lot. It kind of blew my mind. I was like, we don't even have this many Japanese restaurants in England. Like, why is Paris so Japanese, you know? And so I'd go to these Japanese places and I'd get bento boxes and all this kind of stuff. Back then, I didn't even know that gluten was in soy sauce. So I was getting acne and I was breaking out. And honestly, if you break out while you're a model, especially if you're in my position, which was everything was ramping up really quickly, and in Paris and Milan especially, it was so important not to have bad skin. If you walked into an agency and you had a pimple, like, they would pinpoint that and they would make you feel bad about it. But like, it's really quite uncontrollable, aside from, you know, elimination diets and learning what affects your body in certain ways, you know. So I wasn't eating dairy, I wasn't eating chocolate, etc. I was trying to be super, super healthy. One of the things I do remember eating at Japanese restaurants was a lot of chicken satay. I ate a lot of that, which isn't good because obviously it had soy sauce. But so yeah, I did this lookbook shoot, and then I booked 3 other editorials. One of them was for Dedicate magazine, with a photographer called Marcus Mam, and it was amazing because, you know, as basic as it is, the whole set was this bright white set. And so it's kind of like an infinity space. And if you don't know what an infinity space is, they set up lighting so there's no shadows. You're perfectly lit, but you have no shadows behind you or anything like that. And I was shooting with this girl model, and she was beautiful. She was beautiful. And the whole shoot was kind of like a bedtime sleepy vibe. So I was in denim and like tank tops, and it was me and her, and we were like kind of coupley and like hugging, and she was like laying over me, and like I was looking all like sexy in the camera, like you know. But it turned out beautifully. The pictures were beautiful, you know. And this is when I started to get posted on blogs. So people that follow the fashion industry, Tumblr used to be a huge thing. Tumblr was a huge thing for me, for sure, because people used to repost my pictures all the time, and yeah, and so I was seeing myself on fashion blogs and stuff. So yeah, I did that shoot for Dedicate, and then I did another shoot which was actually a test shoot with this guy called Erikos, who was I believe he was a Greek man, and his friend, and yeah, the styling was wonderful. Like, I was wearing like shirts with like bow ties with like streetwear pants, and it was so beautiful, and the whole location was beautiful. Paris for locations is just amazing. Every building has these like wonderful spiral staircases which are beautifully decorated with a beautiful masonry work. It was really quite amazing. Just had to check the video was recording. I don't want to keep on going on. I'm getting more sweaty. It's happening. But yeah, and so the pictures turned out absolutely amazing. And you know, after I shot with this guy, I was like, I want every picture to look like this. I want to look like this in real life. The truth of the matter is that you're always, the majority of the time, going to have your face and everything edited. You're going to have all your acne taken out, your skin's going to be smooth, your eyes are going to be brightened, and on top of that, you have your hair done and your makeup done. So you really feel quite safe in regards to how you look, you know. And so these pictures turned out absolutely beautiful. But also another really big thing happened when I was in Paris is I booked my first real major fashion editorial for a UK magazine, which was known for representing the best up-and-coming models in the industry, and it was called Hero magazine. And I'd wanted to work for Hero magazine for a while because I knew how good it could be for your career. at this point in my career, and honestly, I'd only been doing it for maybe 6 months now at this point. At this point in my career, I had become a businessman. Like, I was really invested in what was happening with my career, the jobs that I was getting and how they would help me. So when I booked this Hero magazine shoot, I was super excited. And I remember turning up, and it was this just in someone's apartment, and I met this guy called Roman Kramer. And when he opened the door, he was like smoking a joint, you know, and it was like, it's hash, it wasn't weed. I'm getting really sweaty. It was hash, it wasn't weed. So, you know, and he's like smoking it, and he's got these eyes. He's like, hello, Jamie. Yeah, come in. He was just fucking cool. Like, I liked him instantaneously. And it turned out that he was actually a designer. And he made this like really interesting, very, very creative sort of like new age kind of style clothing. And he just had this big bag full of all these samples that he made. And the whole shoot was me and him smoking joints and me just going around his house in these clothing, in his design clothing, and just making what we could of it. But he allowed me to be really goofy, and he allowed me to be really innocent, and I really enjoyed that shoot, and I made a friendship with him that day. And you know, I love that guy, and we don't really talk that much anymore, but I ended up working for him a lot in the future, especially for show seasons, because he became the designer of Mugler. And so I ended up walking Mugler fashion show almost, you know, for 5 seasons, I believe, which was amazing. You know, that's what happens with these relationships. But as I say, I didn't form many other relationships aside from the really authentic ones. I couldn't ever really go out of my way, even though I was considering it as a business, I couldn't go out of my way to schmooze. I only really created relationships with people who were really authentic, and I felt like I could trust, and I felt like I could really actually see me outside of just a pretty boy model, you know, or like a shiny little Pokemon to have in their circle, which happened a lot. And so yeah, I shot this magazine with him. And then my time in Paris was done. And, you know, I went back to my agency. They were super happy with how everything had gone. As I say, I booked several editorials, and they had decided then and there that I was going to be coming back for the fashion season, which was maybe in 2 or 3 months. I was going to be coming back for fashion season and doing my first Paris Fashion Week in a few months. So I get back on the Eurostar, and I go back to England, and I'm with my agency, M&P, and they are really happy with me. Again, you know, everything's going really, really well, and I couldn't ask for anything else except for money. You know, like, money was still a real problem. I was going into debt, which is kind of scary. As I say, I'm supporting myself entirely, you know, so if I can't pay the rent check at the end of the month, then I'm pretty screwed at this point. But I'm going for it, and things are going so well that I'm inspired to do it. And so I get back to England, and the first thing my agent says to me is like, Jamie, your New York agent has called, and you want to know what he told me, Jamie? He said, get Jamie to New York, and I'm gonna make him into a star. And so when I hear this head booker at this huge agency in New York is saying they're gonna make me into a star, I was like, wow, this is like exciting stuff, like really exciting stuff. And so I was back in England. I shot a couple more editorials while I was in England. I did another editorial for Hero magazine, which was a 1-page editorial. I did a few little bits and bobs, but nothing really major. And then maybe in 2-3 weeks, I was off to New York. The timeline of this is so complicated because in my head, it feels like months happened between everything. But in reality, you know, I started modeling, I think, in January, and all of this stuff happened within 3 months. You know, it happened so quickly. And then when I went to New York, oh my God. I went to New York as just Jamie, like normal Jamie. And after 6 months, I was one of the top models in the world. Like, it happened that quickly. But yeah, I hope you enjoy. If you have any questions, leave a comment. Leave a comment anyway, because it helps me with the algorithm. Give this video a like. And share it with people who might be interested in the modeling industry or something. I really appreciate everyone who's watching the videos. I'm going to keep doing them. And yeah, these chapters are going to go on and on and on because so much happened. You know, every time I go back into researching all my earlier shoots, I just see the crazy amount of stuff that I did. And you know, I'm going to probably do a video on all the shoots that I missed, because there are definitely shoots that I missed which really helped me during the whole time. And yeah, I'm going to do a big post on all of that kind of stuff. So thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. I'm Jamie Wise. Have a lovely day.